So, okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No. No, please. If you see I already drink it all, when I said that I need a cheers, I say, oh, I still have a small drop.
Come on, it wasn't that painful.
Italian Wine Podcast. Chin Chin with Italian wine people.
Welcome to On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Take a look at part 2 of Stevie's visit to Castello di Volpaia in the heart of Tuscany's Chianti Classico region. Stevie tastes the wines of Volpaia with charismatic owner Giovanna Stianti and her daughter Federica Mascheroni Stianti, the third generation, bringing new life to the estate.
So the third wine, which wine is that you brought out? Coltasala.
Coltasala, she looked at me because I'm the only one who was here almost when the Coltasala started.
What does it mean, Coltasala?
It's the name of the vineyard and the house, the farmhouse. Yes. Mm-hmm. So it changed dress several times, but it's the same red things inside, let's say. Because it started as a table wine, because we were not allowed to have a Chianti with 95% Sangiovese. We started in 1980 working on a vineyard that was already planted 10 years before, but we grafted with the right clones of Sangiovese, because at that time everybody in the 80s or the 70s, everybody were looking for quantity and not quality. So even the clones were not the correct one. And by the chance, we had the receptionist of the industry of my father, who was a grafter during the war. So he was here full time for us. And as you may know, grafting are paid per numbers of grafting they do per day. So
Actually, I didn't know that.
by now you know, and
Yes.
you can say. And so everybody are trying to do as many as they can.
Oh, okay.
As long as he was our worker, he was doing his best, and he didn't need to make 100. He could do just 20 in one day, but they were perfect. And do grafting on a 10 years old vineyard is not as easy as the young one.
Okay, but it is a little different, right? You have some other great. What is the blend?
The blend there is 95% Sangiovese, and from the very beginning, 5% of Mammolo, which is a very strange, we would not be able to do 100% Mammolo, but this touch of Mammolo will make the Sangiovese softer.
So, we do have some geeky audience. They're very geeky about the grapes and the blends. So what does Mammolo bring to the wine, and why did you say that you couldn't do 100% Mammolo?
Because there is no body really.
Okay.
There is a lighter
It's
wine.
structure.
Yes, there is much more. But it has this touch. Mammola is violet in Tuscany.
Oh, okay.
And so it gives, let's say, a little the taste of a violet.
Floral notes.
Floral, exactly. And so we still keep these blends since ever. And of course, when we started, it was not organic, but then we turned it to everything, even this vineyard. But it has always been separate from all the other vineyards. And these are, so as long as the grapes are coming from one single vineyard, if there is hail, you might not find make a Coltasala, because you know that the hail is going just in one spot. It never happened, luckily, but it might happen.
So, you have in blind tasting,
Yes.
okay, you have Coltasala
Yes.
and Chianti Classico. What is in terms of the tasting notes? And then we'll taste one of the wines, but what is the tasting note that you can recognize in blind tasting? Because I know you do blind tasting with the black glasses.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
But in a blind tasting, what is something that you can say one is Chianti Classico and the other is Coltasala?
For sure, in the structure of the wine, the Chianti Classico has the type of the wine, and our Chianti Classico is definitely much lighter compared to the structure that you can find in the Coltasala. So that one is the biggest one when it goes in the mouth. In the Chianti Classico, we can say much more like red fruits, and when you get in the Coltasala, much more the black fruits like a blackberry or something like this.
Okay. Alrighty. Then the next wine.
And the last one.
No, yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yes, the Balifico is the one that doesn't follow the rules of the Chianti Classico, we can say, because it's 65% of Sangiovese and 35% of Cabernet Sauvignon, so it's very different, and for sure.
So it's your super Tuscan, let's say.
Definitely, yes.
There is no black rooster.
Yes.
And another things that I want to say that we are in the Radda area, that it's very important to say it's not only Chianti Classico, you know, now it's more and more the concentration of each single subzone of the Chianti Classico, and so Volpaia is in the heart of Radda and Chianti. That is the heart of the Chianti Classico.
But really, the Lega
Heart
del
of the heart.
Chianti,
Yes.
the Lega del Chianti started in Radda, so it's not a story that we invented in the 21st century.
Are you sure it wasn't your husband who invented it?
No, it's not.
Okay. And what are the volumes in terms of production of these bottles?
Quite small.
Because they're both single vineyard wines.
Yes, it's around 8,000 bottles.
Right. So it's significantly smaller.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's taste one wine. What are we tasting?
Why don't we taste the Coltasala?
Why don't we?
This is the 2018, and from the 2015 vintage, it is a Gran Selezione.
Oh, okay. It's Gran Selezione.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So tell me, how would you give me the tasting notes?
For sure, you have, if in the Chianti Classico you have a cherry, in the Coltasala I found much more amarena. How do you say?
Amarena.
Amarena. Yes. Change the accent.
I think it's Amarena.
So the darker cherry, the one that is rounder, and
Less acid than cherries, softer.
and then the blackberry, and then you have the structure is a wine that is aged also in barrique. So the structure is also coming from the wood, but what we try is like not to impress it too much with the wood, so only 1/3 is the new barrique.
Oh, okay. And how many is in barrique?
How many months?
Yeah, how many months?
It's roughly, depends about the vintage, between 18 and 24. And you know, anyhow, to become a Gran Selezione, you need a minimum of 6 months after in the bottle.
Right.
So
Bottle aging.
yes, that is very important. Sometimes a lot of people doesn't really take care about this point, but it's incredibly important, the aging in the bottle. And for me, the best bottle is the Magnum. It's the perfect dimension of the bottle and the cork on top.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Try to have aged Magnum and the same vintage as a normal 750, and it's different. You can feel
So
it.
you know, we were walking around the Borgo, okay, Hamlet, as we found out, and it is incredibly, for me, amazing how you were able to create a bona fide winemaking facilities inside of these small buildings, right? And how it's integrated. So tell us a little bit about the Borgo and your day-to-day life with the workers here.
I mean, really, is the soul of everything was my husband. I always say that my husband didn't marry me. He wanted Volpaia, and the only way to have Volpaia was to marry me. So I was part of a package.
Okay.
He really felt in love with this place where we were coming just as engaged. And then he started working, and he was going very well with my father. So at the beginning, he had no money, so my father helped. He had the idea, and my father was financing the idea. So it was a good team. And they started one thing at a time. No, we didn't do everything at the same time, in one time. And also we never knew that we would be what we are, because I'm sure that otherwise we would not do it, because it's so fascinating. And as long as we don't make money, at least we live in a nice place. We enjoy what we do every day, and that is the best reward that we can have.
But because I think your family was one of the very first utilizing the cold fermentation, controlled fermentation.
Absolutely, yes.
Vessels, right?
Yes. That was really something that we changed 5 times the way we ferment the wine. But every time was something new. We realized that the wine could, we started doing the stainless steel. So with stainless steel, you cannot leave it open because you start the fermentation when it's very warm. So it's like making a soup and have the heater at the maximum. So it boil, and all the perfume will leave. So we immediately understood that in wood it would be different because there's much more insulation around. But with stainless steel, it was very important to control the temperature. And we had this project that this person just made for us because there was not so much people doing this way. Now everybody are more or less abandoning this way, and they're coming back to cement that we already tried. Now there is many different ways of fermenting, and that's dependent from your own taste. For example, now they ferment also in clay. I tasted the wine. It's my personal taste. I don't like. It's not bad.
Right.
I don't like.
Yeah, you don't have like the eggs, the fashionable.
Exactly.
Everyone has like some eggs now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let's talk about, if you want, a little bit about your other estates and the type of wines you make. You guys are looking at each other like, you take it, no, you talk about it, no, you talk about it.
No, that's not my estate. My father gave me this, and her father gave the other wine estate to her. So everything is repeated in the years, and so that is the present that my husband gave to Federica.
So the one in Marimo. And what about Pantelleria?
That one is my brother, I'm sorry.
Oh, he's not here.
Yes, we miss the singer of the family. No, that is a project of my brother. I think it is a problem of my family. We are not able to have a house without a vineyard.
Oh, okay. So if you need a house, you buy a vineyard with it.
Exactly.
I think this is the main issue of the family.
Good thing you only had 2 children, because otherwise you would have 10 estates.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about Marimo. What kind of wines do you produce?
It's very different. It's only 2 hours by car, but it's a totally different microclimb there. It's in Castello di Volpaia in Maremma, Toscana. So it's like 1 hour driving southern than Bolgheri. Where we are located, it's near the seaside. So Maremma, it's quite a wide area that goes even very much inland also. And so being so close to the sea, we don't grow very much Sangiovese. Actually, now we are in the process of replanting most of the vineyards. What we are very happy and what we see is growing very well is the Vermentino.
Yeah, of course.
They're, following the steps of what Liguria or Sardinia has already done. Maremma is now focusing very much in the Vermentino, in aged Vermentino, so even in Riserva. So that it's, and then obviously we have the grapes, the red grapes on the Cabernet side. And
so when was the first vintage?
2007. But the Vermentino arrived a little bit later because it was not planted, and we planted there.
And what about Pantelleria, even if Nicolo's in here?
The first vintage is 2011, yes.
So you have, and do you do any sparklers?
Yes.
You do it, right?
No, that is the passion of my brother.
Oh, okay, he does it. Where is he doing that?
A part is done here, so we have 100% of Sangiovese from Volpaia, from a single vineyard in
And it's Metodo Classico.
Esatto, and millesimato.
Okay.
and we are doing since the 2010 vintage.
And it's a small production, right?
Very small.
So it's like in Italian you say sfizio. I love that word.
Yes, it's very sfizio. Yes. And then more or less in the same moment, he has a house
In Pantelleria.
but another one in Oltrepò Pavese. So pay attention. He's trying to buy something there. I am forcing here to don't do it. But, and so he joined the south and north of Italy. So the Pinot Noir from Oltrepò, and as a liqueur d'espedition, the Passito di Pantelleria. And so this wine is made up in the north, in Oltrepò Pavese. It's nothing about our own grapes, but there is this project too, and it's a sparkling, it's a spumante.
Okay, so we spoke mostly about winemaking. I briefly touched on the vineyard management, right? Can you give me like the 5 things that we need to know about the different types of microclimate, the soil structure and altitude, the exposure to sun, the wind, closeness to the sea? Yeah, about this, because it's very elevated, right? Yeah. Where does it start?
We start, the lowest vineyard is the one of the Castellino. It's around 350 meters. And it is the one that now we are making the sparkling wine from there, because it was the low one that for most of the other people is the high one. Then more or less...
What is the altitude?
350 there.
350,
Yeah.
okay.
Then from there we go up. The new vineyard that we have over Volpaia is reaches 650 meters, so very high elevated for the area. So for sure we have elevation. That is quite a characteristic. Then our exposure, we look south.
It's okay. Southern exposure.
Yes, southern exposure. Obviously, is nothing flat. So you have southeast, southwest, and then in different slopes.
Are you able to do mechanical harvesting here, or no? Everything is hand harvested.
Yes, everything is hand picking and work. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
And people that come for the harvest the second day, not always they come back, because it's very much work and going up and down, very stony. So another characteristic of Volpaia, a lot of stones in the vineyard and sand.
Yeah, we saw that. It's very rocky.
Yeah, so it's really a huge difference after in the wine. So minerality. Microclimb, because of the elevation, we have the valley below. So even at the end of the season, like in September, more in October, sometimes we see the vineyards in the bottom of the valley that could have lost already all the leaves and still have some bunch of grape that has to be picked. But upper, we don't have a lot of fogs or things like this, and so we still have all our leaves on the plants, and so they keep working to ripe the grape. For sure, the microclimate of Volpaia is quite different, and so at the same time a lot of wind. That is good.
It's always windy here, right?
Yes, it's good. I mean, in the summer now, with the change of the climate, for sure, we are reaching really high temperature anyhow. So now, but before we have never needed air conditioning in the rooms. Now we start to have this necessary.
What is the diurnal temperature range, like the difference between the high temperature and low temperature here?
In the summer, you could be without, in t-shirt, even less, but in the afternoon, you need a sweater.
Right, so it's cool in...
But it's August 10,
okay.
And so it's in the middle of August, so it should be a very hot day. We were doing a big party every year in the past, and everybody was coming here dressed in a way at the beginning of the day, of the evening, and at the end everybody was wearing its jacket or its sweater, even if it was August.
Yes. But the climate change helped us very, very much. Mm-hmm. So we are very high elevation. So previously we didn't reach the temperature we needed
for the enough sugar.
Exactly. So now the problem, if you remember that the appellation tells that Riserva should reach at least 12 degree alcohol. Now they should say they cannot go over.
Right.
Because the climate and really the people who were very lucky in the 60s or the 70s, today they suffer. I always say, and it's true, I met this friend of mine a few days ago and he just confirmed, I don't tell you the name because he's a good producer, but in 2003 he asked me in a party, did you make wine this year? Yes, of course I did. Why? No, I made marmalade because there was no juice in the grapes because it's very low located. And
But are you picking earlier now?
Yes.
You are, right? Yes. And what about frost? Is that a problem in this area?
Usually in this area could be for lower altitude, but like the last frost in April that this area had, we were not really impacted. I mean, we had like a 2% of the production, even less, but other people got really big damage.
You know, the elevation, just getting back to that 1 nanosecond, the difference in elevation, and it's predominantly Sangiovese, right? Is that correct? So do you have different clones according to different elevation?
No, not about different elevation, but I was talking today with the winemaker and...
Who's the winemaker, by the way?
The local one, the one that has to live with the grapes every day is Lorenzo Regoli. Then we have in the cellar, then we have a consultant that is Riccardo Cotarella.
Yeah, the super enologist, yeah.
But it's nice also to have somebody that works for different wineries and can bring you problems, solving problems usually that had somebody else. And then obviously it's very important also the people that are working in the vineyards. So Simone Vignali, that is another important person for us because and has to be an energy between the three of them that has to be connected.
So there is something, a new kind of association of Rada.
Yes.
Yeah, what is, can you tell me a little bit about that?
We are now the Vignaioli di Radda. So, and what is nice is a big connection between all of us.
How many producers are there?
We are over 20 now, and the biggest important things, we eat a lot together and we drink a lot of together.
It seems like an excellent reason to have an association.
Yeah, and different wines. Yes, and different wines from the different areas of Radda. So a lot of exchange, technical notes, practical notes, and then work together. Try to be much more. Sometimes the French are better, so try to be much more like French and work together. As an association, you can make much more impact than work as a...
Maybe because it's a small group, you can work together.
Yeah, could be.
Italians are notorious.
No.
Individualists.
No, they don't share.
So individualistic. Yeah. Listen, so my last question before we close, what are the food and wine recommendations? For what are the food recommendations for your wines?
It's a Chianti Classico, it's a Sangiovese, so for sure sit at the table and eat and drink at the same time. Don't think about for my point of view, I think about a Sangiovese, drink it by yourself. I think it's much more pleasure if you have some food with. I'm sorry to be rude with the vegan or vegetarian, but the meat is the best pairing for this type of wines.
So of course it's typical, right? Chianti Classico with Fiorentina steak. Yeah. But what about international foods? Like, I don't know, tacos, hamburger. Well, hamburger is very similar, but so that seems to be like a logical choice. But what are some other food items? You travel, you hate Korean food, so definitely no Korean food. Okay, but what about some other types of international dishes?
I tell often this story because I remained very shocked. It was one of my first trips. I was in Hong Kong and was not really able to choose the food. And I was with the journalist and he chose for me the food. And arrived in front of me this wonderful white fish. Was looking like boiled white fish.
Boiled white fish, yeah.
And I said,
How can you drink it with Chianti?
And actually was with a very fat sauce that you were not seeing at the beginning. So the sweetness of and the fatness of that one was pairing incredibly well with the structure of the wine. And I was so incredibly surprised and thanking the person. So it's difficult for me to say what is the food. For example, Thai food with the spiciness is wonderful. No, it's wonderful. It's low down, it's fantastic.
So you would recommend with spicy food?
Yes.
It doesn't cover up the...
It's low down the spice. Obviously, the spice is always for me is always too high, but the red wine, when you have a food too spicy, usually is bring a piece of bread, and then drink a glass of wine, and you will have your mouth that finally breathe again.
Right. So it's making me really hungry. So I think we should stop. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's do a chin chin. Thank you. Chin chin. And thank you so much for the invitation.
No, thank you very much for coming.
Okay. And it's a wrap from Rada
Sì,
in Chianti.
esatto.
Okay.
Ciao.
Ciao ragazzi.
Ciao, grazie mille.
And that's a wrap for this edition of On the Road with Stevie Kim. For more amazing interviews in the world of wine, check out ItalianWinePodcast.com. Chin chin, and thanks for listening.